It started so small, I almost didn't notice. One of those things that makes you pause for a second and think, that's odd, but you shake it off. At least that's what I did. I wish I hadn't. It was the first week of October. Fall was settling in, with cold, crisp mornings and that smell of decaying leaves in the air. I'd been living in this apartment building for 2 years, and everything was predictable. Everyone had their routines, including my neighbor across the hall. An older woman, quiet, kept to herself. We never talked much, just polite nods when we passed each other. But about 10 days ago, something changed. I was coming home from work, arms full of groceries, when I saw her in the hallway. She was just standing there, outside her door, staring straight ahead. Her hands were by her sides, her body unnaturally still. I remember thinking, she's probably locked herself out or something. But what struck me was her face. She wasn't blinking. You know how when someone stares at you too long without blinking, it gets uncomfortable? That's what it felt like. But I brushed it off. People get distracted. Maybe she was just lost in thought. I said, "Hey, everything all right?" No response. She didn't even move, didn't flinch, didn't turn, just kept staring at nothing. I squeezed past her and unlocked my door, but even as I went inside, I could feel her eyes. Or rather, the lack of movement in her eyes. It was unsettling, but I told myself it was nothing. People are weird sometimes. The next morning, I saw her again. She was in the same spot, standing there, eyes wide open, still not blinking. This time, I couldn't ignore it. 2 days in a row. No one just does that. "Good morning," I tried, louder this time. She didn't move, not a twitch. Her eyes looked dry, red, but she didn't blink, not once. I'm ashamed to admit it, but I hurried to work that day, trying to shake off the creeping sense of unease. I wanted to believe it was some harmless eccentricity, or maybe she was sick. But by day 3, I knew something was wrong. Deeply wrong. She was still there, standing in the exact same spot, the same blank, unblinking stare fixed ahead. I don't even think she'd gone inside her apartment. The hallway smelled stale, like someone had been standing there far too long without moving. I didn't say anything this time, just walked past her as quickly as I could, heart racing, skin crawling. By the end of that week, it had become routine. Every morning, every night, she was there, not blinking, not moving. Her eyes, they looked so dry, so strained, like they were begging to close, but they never did. It didn't make sense. People can't go that long without blinking. It's physically impossible. I even looked it up. Your eyes need moisture. They need breaks. But she just stood there, as if she didn't need anything anymore. As if she wasn't human. I started avoiding her, leaving earlier for work, sneaking out through the back entrance, waiting until late at night to come home, just to avoid walking past her. But I couldn't stop thinking about her, about what was happening to her eyes. On day 6, I came home late, thinking she'd maybe finally gone inside. But she hadn't. She was still there. This time, I couldn't help myself. I had to look closer. Her pupils were dilated. Her eyes were rimmed with cracked red lines, like they were tearing themselves apart from the inside. But the worst part was her expression. There wasn't one. It was blank, like her face had been wiped clean of emotion. No fear, no sadness, no confusion, just nothing. It was like staring into the eyes of a doll, hollow. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't shake the image of those unblinking, dry eyes. It didn't make sense. It defied logic, defied everything I knew about what was humanly possible. But there she was, every day, every night, never blinking. By day 8, I was losing it. I started thinking I was imagining the whole thing. Maybe I was stressed. Maybe work was getting to me. Maybe I'd hallucinated the entire thing. But then I realized I wasn't the only one who had noticed. I heard the whispers in the building. Other neighbors talking in hushed tones about the strange woman in the hall. Someone even mentioned calling the police, but nothing came of it. Everyone was too scared to get involved. And the woman, she just stayed there, unblinking, unmoving, as if she was waiting for something. Yesterday, I couldn't take it anymore. I finally called out to her. I don't know why. Desperation, I guess. "Do you need help?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Are you okay?" Nothing. Not even a flicker of acknowledgement. I walked right up to her. I was shaking, but I had to know. I had to see her up close to make sense of it. When I got within inches of her face, I could see the veins in her eyes, bulging, ready to burst. I could feel the heat coming off her skin, but she was so still. Too still. I reached out. My fingers hovered near her shoulder, and I hesitated. I didn't want to touch her. Something inside me screamed not to, but I couldn't stop myself. I needed to know if she was real. The moment my fingers brushed her shoulder, she moved. Just a small twitch, but it was enough to send me reeling back in horror. Her head snapped toward me, eyes still unblinking, and for the first time, she spoke. "I'm waiting," she whispered. Her voice was raspy, like she hadn't used it in years. "Waiting for what?" I asked, my throat dry. She didn't answer. She just smiled. A slow, creeping smile that stretched too far, her lips cracking at the edges, but her eyes, still unblinking, never changed. I ran. That was yesterday. I haven't left my apartment since. I can still hear her out there, standing in the hallway, waiting. She never moves, never blinks, just stands there in silence, like some twisted sentinel. But here's the thing. I don't know what she's waiting for. And worse, I'm starting to feel like I'm the one who's changing. Last night, I stared at myself in the mirror for hours, my eyes wide open, refusing to blink. And you know what? I barely even noticed. It was easy, almost natural. And now, as I sit here writing this, I realize I haven't blinked once, not once in the past 2 hours. I'm scared to close my eyes. What if when I do, I'm the one waiting next?